definition tells us what something means, whether in simple or complex terms, depending on the subject. There are two types of definitions: formal definitions, which are short explanations you see in dictionaries, and extended definitions, which are much longer explanations that go further into details, going so far as to explain a subject's nature. In formal definitions, we use a three-part structure. You state the term, the class it is a part of, and what makes it different from other terms in its class. Provide a true definition. Don't try to explain the term with the term. When you explain, be as precise as you can in your explanation to show a clear difference in other terms. Extended definition essays include definitions from dictionaries, but typically as an introduction. You can explain other terms in your essays, but only if you explain them briefly and their explanation contributes to the main term you are defining. It does not follow a pattern of development like formal definitions. Depending on the writer's purpose, the term you are defining, and your writing situation, you will use various patterns of development for your essay. When developing a thesis for a definition essay, your thesis should do more than just state and define your term. You need to explain the larger purpose for explaining your term. What is the point you are trying to make?
Wow, so it's exactly what I thought it was then. So an extended definition goes beyond a dictionary definition to fully explain a complex term or idea. It uses various patterns of development and has a clear essay structure. The methods for extending a definition, patterns of development. There are 5 types. 1. Exemplification, using detailed examples. 2. Description, detailing what something is, looks like, or how it feels. 3. Comparison and contrast, showing similarities and differences to familiar things. 4. Process, explaining how something works in a step-by-step sequence. And lastly, 5. Classification and division, placing a term in a general category and then breaking it into subtypes. There are other useful strategies. 1. Synonyms, using words with similar meanings. 2. Negation, explaining what the term is not. 3. Enumeration, listing its characteristics. 4. Origin and development, discussing the word's history. And 5. Visuals, using a diagram or photo to aid understanding. The structure of a definition essay. Introduction, identify the terms to be defined, provides a brief formal definition, states a thesis that shows your specific focus or a group argument about the term. Body, expands the definition using one or more of the patterns listed above. Each paragraph or section develops a different aspect of the definition. And lastly, conclusion, reinforces the main point, restates the thesis in different words, and summarizes why the definition is significant.
Now, on to Tedra and Laurel.
Now, Laurel and I will be discussing the student essay Untouchable while also going over the definition review checklist to prove that it is an effective definition essay. For starters, the topic sentence of the student essay Untouchable's introduction clearly states what term the essay will be defining. The intro also provides a background to the term, explaining how it came to be. In the second paragraph, the essay reintroduces the term while providing a formal definition of it. In addition, this paragraph explains the historical significance of the term with the use of an exemplification plan of development. On the contrary, the third paragraph relates the term to modern day, discussing how society's view of the term changed over time. Even with these changed views, some aspects of untouchability are still seen culturally. This paragraph also follows an exemplification plan of development with the examples used for modern day. As seen in the fourth paragraph, the writer makes use of a narrative. This story adds imagery to the essay and evokes emotion in the reader through vivid description. The last 2 paragraphs that make up the conclusion summarize what the reader now knows about the term. Something that stuck out to our group was the mention of a thesis in the conclusion paragraph. As we stated previously in this video, a thesis statement is meant to be found in the introductory paragraph. However, due to the uniqueness of the writer's topic, their use of a thesis in the concluding paragraphs added more depth to the essay than if it were placed in the introduction.
So now we'll be going over the revision checklist to ensure that this is an effective definition essay. So the first question asks, does your assignment call for definition?
Yes!
It calls for definition because the author's main focus was defining and explaining the word untouchable in India. He presented a series of ways to explain the word to the reader. The second question, Does your essay include a clearly worded thesis statement, one that identifies the term you will be defining and tells readers why you would be defining it? Not fully. The thesis contains why the term needs to be identified because audiences from Western regions may not understand the caste system despite it being a common word. The next question. Have you included a formal definition of your subject? Have you defined other key terms that may not be familiar to your readers?
Yes.
In the introduction, the author proposed a formal definition of the word untouchable, who they were, what caste system they belonged, and how they were treated. The key terms that the author defined were the different classes of the hierarchy. The next question. Have you used appropriate patterns of development to expand your definition?
Yes.
The author uses a combination of exemplification pattern and narrative pattern. In exemplification, they use differentiation of modern terms and old terms, and also for narrative, it explains the childhood memory of the author that shows emotional impact of the word. You need to use other strategies such as synonyms, negation, or enumeration to expand your definition.
Yes.
In this essay, the writer uses multiple strategies to deepen the reader's understandings of the term untouchable. The author uses synonyms such as the low caste, depressed classes, and lower than dogs and cattle to show the severity of the label. It also uses negation, that it is difficult for Western readers to grasp the concept, emphasizing what the term is not in other cultures. And for enumeration, the essay lists the caste levels such as the Brahmins and the Shudras. Okay, next question. Do you need to discuss the origin and development of the term you are defining?
Absolutely.
The essay clearly shows how important the history of the word untouchable is. It describes the traditional Hindu caste system and how untouchability was rooted in the ancient religious and social practices. Okay, and lastly, the other two questions. Do you need to include a visual? We think that you don't need a visual, however, we as readers appreciate it because it enhances the clarity of the imagery in our minds as to what the word untouchable means. And for our final question, do you need to include sources?
Yes.
Incorporating sources makes the essay factual since it explains the origin of the word and it strengthens the essay overall.